We are back with the third plexus of the endocrine system. We're talking about the adrenal glands of the solar slash celiac plexus. The adrenal glands are located on top of the kidneys, and these are the glands that respond to our perceived stress levels, our emotional stress, lack of sleep, extreme temperatures, overwork, overexercise, actual physical threat, and food allergies or sensitivities, which create stress and inflammation in the body. So the adrenals are dealing with all of it. They release hormones such as epinephrine and norepinephrine. These have a strong and lasting influence on our fight, flight, or freeze responses to stress. And some say our fawning response. To me, freezing and fawning are a lot alike. But fawning could be actually fainting. So the adrenal glands influence our heart rate, blood pressure, and increase blood sugar while dilating our respiratory passages. Things like the steroids in the body, aldosterone, affects blood electrolyte levels by increasing blood levels of sodium and decreasing blood levels of potassium. So one of the great herbs I did not list below would be dandelion leaf is an excellent support of potassium, and it doesn't drain the potassium while supporting the kidneys as a diuretic if the body's holding excess fluids, of course. And then we've got cortisol, which inhibits inflammation and provides resistance to stress, promotes regular metabolism, and helps to maintain glucose from non-carbohydrate sources. Cortisol, when there's too much cortisol, results in Cushing's disease, and too little cortisol results in Addison's disease. And just a little note about low cortisol levels, but not quite Addison's. So a long time ago, I was in my early to mid 30s. So I was diagnosed with adrenal exhaustion or adrenal fatigue. And this was a naturopathic doctor reading my numbers. So if you're at a 3 or less, I believe they call that Addison's disease. But if you have your blood drawn like I did in the morning, the level of cortisol in your blood is supposed to read between 18 to 22, and mine was at a 6. And I was only in my early 30s. I don't think I was even 34 or 35 yet. I'd have to, do math. But anyway, I was quite young to have that diagnosis. And I think if I had gone to a medical doctor, an allopathic doctor, they may have looked at my adrenal numbers and said, oh, no, you don't have Cushing's or Addison's, so you're fine. And I would not have known what I really needed to support my energy levels. Okay. So anyway, in my opinion, it's super important to see someone that reads the numbers a little differently. Like it's not where it should be in a happy, healthy person. So let's deal with it. Okay. Androgens. Male sex hormones have a limited effect in adult males, but contribute to a woman's libido. In TCM, got a nice list here. Traditional Chinese medicine has a unique approach to adrenal fatigue because it's not actually a thing in traditional Chinese medicine. They don't have a illness or disease called adrenal fatigue. They consider the symptoms of tiredness or exhaustion as a sign of deficiency. But where? They're trying to figure out the details of where this deficiency could be. Is it in the spleen, the kidney, the lung? What's going on with their qi in these areas? And so they ask a lot of questions. I am not a Chinese medicine doctor, but I might be someday. I love learning, and so I'll probably continue to do so. And anyway, here's some great questions to ask because this does give us a lot of help in deciding which herbs to suggest for ourselves or others. When you touch their skin or your skin, does it feel cold or hot? And where might you be noticing this? Is it in your head and face? Is it in the chest? Are the hands and feet cold, or only the hands and not the feet? You get what I'm saying? And is there a sense of coldness in the chest? Like, I know I tend to feel a sense of coldness in my chest. And a lot of times I could tell it has to do with emotions, especially grief. And so I definitely go to warming herbs, pungent herbs to support me and my healing. And we'll get more to that later. And then we have digestion problems. Do they have any? Do they have frequent urination, which is a sign of kidney qi deficiency? Do they have weak limbs, a weak low back, or weak knees? Is there a dip in their energy from 3 to 5 p.m.? Do they get a second wind after 9 p.m.? And if they get that second wind, do they stay up way later than they know they should based on the next day that they have? And then they kind of promote their own exhaustion in that way. Do they get the night sweats or have 5 palm heat? Do they have dry skin or dry mouth? Even dry eyes. I didn't list that out, but that's definitely a sign. Do they have other endocrine imbalances that they've shared or asked them? How would they rate their stress levels? And when they're telling you about their stress in their lives, and you think, oh my gosh, for me, that'd be a 10, and they're like, oh, it's nothing, it's normal. That's something they really need to look at because they may have created a internal numbing system to think that they're fine under that kind of stress, but really it's just not healthy for their nervous system and the adrenals, the endocrine here. And how's their sleep? Do they have sleep apnea or frequent urination while trying to sleep? How's their diet? Do they have specific cravings or indulgences that they know are not healthy for them? Do they exercise? And are they exercising too much? Back in my 30s, I used to love to run, and I would run every single day. And I loved it, but I was also really exhausted, and I would feel that after exercise high for just a little bit, and then within an hour or even less, I would crash into a physical exhaustion when my muscles felt tired and I felt like I needed to sleep. So how much are they exercising and what type of exercise are they getting? Because that's really important. Restorative, gentle exercise is good, right? Gardening is good, gentle walks, restorative yoga, Tai Chi, etc. But intense exercise is not always the best choice. And I think I mentioned that down below also a little bit. And are they taking some important supplements? Have they had their blood tested to see where their levels are for their vitamin D, vitamin A? I didn't list it, but to me, vitamin E is super important, as we learned about in the colds and flus and viral infection section. Are they taking B12? And all the Bs, if they have a deficiency, they could consider that. I take a vegan vitamin B12 supplement and I take a vitamin D supplement. And I love it. Now, I don't take a magnesium supplement because I eat a lot of dark green leafy vegetables. So when I've tried taking magnesium supplements, I immediately get diarrhea. So that, like vitamin C, if you have too much magnesium or too much vitamin C, it affects the bowels. So you would take it to your bowel tolerance. And then selenium. I don't take selenium, but it could be a very important part of recovery. Types of herbs for adrenal fatigue would include the following based on the case: adaptogens, carminatives, immunomodulators, relaxing nervines, and sedatives. Some wonderful adaptogens. I know we've talked about this before, but we'll just talk about some of them here. And adaptogens are used for long-term support, and they don't usually work for someone to feel better immediately that same day. For some people, it might. But for most people, it takes some time to build up. And these herbs will help to decrease negative reactions to stress and support our energy. And they are crucial to revitalize the adrenal glands. One of the herbs I didn't list out here, I'm noticing, is actually licorice root. So if this person has adrenal fatigue, they likely have low blood pressure or normal blood pressure. So licorice root would be very safe and very good for the adrenal glands. I didn't list it out, but it's really a wonderful herb. And it is an antiviral herb as well. So licorice root should be added to your list. It is wonderful. Okay, so we have ashwagandha, ginseng, panax, and eleuthero root, which is a Siberian ginseng. When I was diagnosed in my 30s, the naturopath put me on ashwagandha, eleuthero root, passion flower, and Vitex. So this helped to balance out my hormones and also restore my energy, and it worked beautifully. I take Vitex now. I'm 50 years old, and my period comes every 27 to 28 days. It is awesome. It is not an adaptogen herb. It is meant to help our pituitary gland and help us with our regularity as women. But I just thought I would mention it because it's part of the formula. The passion flower is a sedative herb. It is a relaxing nervine, and it can help with sleep, and it's an antispasmodic, and it's just wonderful. And it actually, on a spiritual level, really helps us with our soul's purpose. So I love passion flower. But again, I didn't list it on here below, but now you know. So ashwagandha, ginseng, or Siberian ginseng, the eleuthero root. Then we have Codonopsis and the nettles nourishing herbal infusions. So we've listed that out before in this program. This would be 1 cup or 1 ounce of dried cut nettle leaves per 3 to 4 cups of water. My daughter did it in 2 cups because she didn't want to drink it all day. But it absorbs in the water, and you would just drink that all day. Nettles are really important for so many things, but it replenishes all of our minerals. It's high in vitamin K, and it really supports the kidneys and adrenal glands. It's quite restorative. I would consider that a foundation for anyone who has adrenal fatigue. And then all these other herbs listed below are low dose herbs, except the oat straw. That is also, you could take in a whole cup of dried oat straw per day. So anyhow, those are foundational, and then these other lower dose herbs would be added to that protocol. We have milky oats, cordyceps, rhodiola, and shatavari. Then the relaxing nervines. Now, of course, there's more than this in the world, but these are really beautiful and supportive. The milky oats is usually found in a tincture. Yeah, I get it from Wise Women Herbals, but anyway, so you could get a tincture of milky oats, and of course you can have oat straw in abundance. And you could consider a cup of nettles in the morning. I'm sorry, not a cup. The 4 cups of nettles in the morning and the 4 cups of oat straw in the late afternoon or afternoon. Then we have skullcap, which is very, very, very low dose. You could start with 1 drop maybe 4 drops. It can be a very low dose herb. And some people just take it at bedtime, and that's the only time they take it. Other people do need it throughout the day. So that would just depend on the person. And then chamomile. Oh, I love chamomile. I've been growing it with my granddaughter, and chamomile is really powerful in protecting our headspace, our thinking, and it's a wonderful relaxing nervine, and it tastes great. Now, in order to get sometimes as relaxed as we would need to, if just a gentle cup isn't enough, then definitely look into your book, Alchemy of Herbs, because chamomile, I believe you can take a teaspoon of chamomile throughout the day. So several teaspoons in a day, 2 to 4, to maintain a sense of calm instead of anxiety. And it has been proven to work in research on anxiety. And that's without putting someone to sleep. So I think my daughter, she's always afraid things are going to make her go to sleep. So I've got to look for other things like hops or something. But anyway, I love the chamomile. Immunomodulators to balance the immune system. And this also helps to prevent colds, flus, viral infections, and or allergies, or, seasonal allergies. Astragalus root can be taken an ounce, or, when it's a root, it's heavier. It's about a quarter cup is an ounce of astragalus root dried. And that could be put in 2 to 4 cups of water and decocted. So you'd want to simmer that for 20 minutes with the lid on. Reishi mushroom is also very, very hard. And so that would be one to decoct for at least 30 minutes or find a really great tincture of it. Cordyceps, typically in a tincture, and holy basil. I mean, you could take the powder and put it in stuff if you don't mind the flavor, or, find other sources of the holy basil. Holy basil isn't for everyone. It can cause infertility in some women, they've noticed. So just be careful of the age group you're working with and what their goals are. Carminative herbs, they're typically warming here because often people with adrenal fatigue, or they feel cold or express symptoms of coldness. So using ginger when making these teas is really great. Black pepper, trichadu, and turmeric, these are all wonderful. And then at the sedatives to support sleep, you've got nutmeg, California poppy, valerian, kava, and skullcap, which skullcap we talked about earlier. So one of the things I noticed in Alchemy of Herbs, there's a great section on turmeric, and there's a recipe for golden milk, which of course I use plant milk. The best ones would be unsweetened soy milk or unsweetened ripple milk. It's made out of sweet peas or peas, PEA. And I think adding a quarter teaspoon, which is a gram of nutmeg approximately, to the turmeric with some cinnamon and black pepper would taste absolutely amazing. When nutmeg kicks in, it's a sedative for about 8 hours, but it takes a couple of hours for it to kick in, 2 hours or more. So if you want to go to sleep at 9, you'll want to take this by 7. And also depends on when you need to wake up, right? I like to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, so I take it earlier. So anyhow, that's my thoughts on that. I think it tastes fantastic. And then adrenal fatigue can take 6 months to a year to fully resolve, and often with ups and downs. So it's just something you have to be really consistent with in taking care of yourself and be patient with those downs. There's sometimes emotional things that need to be resolved. So I'm just going to list out a few things here. Does this person need to change who they are in order to get better? I'm talking about our personality. Remember, Dr. Joe Dispenza says your personality creates your reality. So, in order to change our reality, we need to make some changes to our personality. So, are they exercising? Do they need to change how they exercise? Do they need to exercise less or exercise differently, restoratively, rather than high impact training or running? For example, when I was recovering from adrenal exhaustion, I was not allowed or even capable of running. Is this a type A burnout? I'm not a type A personality at all. I got adrenal exhaustion from 30 years, literally, of stress. And I know I was diagnosed in my 30s, but I I was born with a clubbed foot. So they had to perform surgery on me before I was a year old, before I walked, right? So they had to put me under and break my leg and fix it. And that's pretty stressful for a kid, right? I was born with something wrong with my hip, but I don't think they diagnosed it. But anyway, the stress started pretty young. And then I was started to be abused when I was 3. And then my mom died when I was 15. And it just goes on from there. So I had a whole long decades decades of stress, and I didn't realize what an effect it really can have on us. So you may want to see if they're in abusive situations or relationships. I actually have a friend that's in a job that's quite abusive. If you were to take a look at what she's sharing and how they're wording things, what they expect of her and how they say it all, it's actually just like an abusive relationship, and it's a little scary, actually. So that's something to really consider when you want to choose between your health or your job. It's a pretty tough decision that alone can be stressful. So there's a lot going on there. Are they financially chronically depleted? That can create so much stress in somebody's life if they have not learned how to think differently and respond differently to the situations. Were they abused or traumatized in childhood and it needs healing? Research actually reveals that childhood traumas, even just one trauma, can deplete our resiliency to stress from an early age and needs healing and restoration. And they've even found, in studying victims of the Holocaust, that it affected the DNA of their children and grandchildren, and they have less resilience to stress than the generations before them. So it can be passed on. So does your family, your dad, your mom, your grandparents have a history of trauma? I know my father sure did, and my mom did in her own ways. So this is just important stuff to take a look at when wanting to recover from adrenal exhaustion. And another suggestion is Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches a meditation called Blessing of the Energy Centers. And this can really support the healing of our adrenals, but also every plexus of the endocrine system. And I downloaded his meditation on my phone. It's called Blessing of the Energy Centers. And then he has another one with breath work, which is super important for the pineal gland. We'll talk about that one later, but that one is tuning into new potentials. So those are really great. So that's it for this section. We'll see you next time.